Virgo, stop scrolling. This message found you for a reason. You may think you landed here by coincidence, but coincidences do not exist at this altitude of energy. When the universe wants your attention, it does not whisper, it intervenes. And right now, it is intervening for you. Virgo, pause for one breath. Feel the shift behind your ribs. That slight tightening. That sudden awareness. That is the signature of destiny pulling you into alignment. You were summoned here because the days of December 9th and 10th are not ordinary days. They are a cosmic pressure point, a rare opening in the spiritual grid that will not appear again before 2025. When this window opens, it does not come to entertain you. It comes to redirect you. It comes to correct the path that life has bent out of place. And for Virgo, this is not forecast. This is intervention. Something massive, swift, and completely unavoidable is already moving toward you. The universe is rearranging events behind your back, shifting people in and out of your life, preparing the ground for a breakthrough that will feel both shocking and overdue. If your chest feels warm, if something in you is leaning closer to the sound of my voice, it's because your spirit recognizes a truth your mind hasn't caught up to yet. You are not here to receive a message. You are here because the message chose you. Before we go deeper into what this divine disruption wants to deliver, let me welcome you to Mindfulness Meditation, a space where intuition is honored, where spiritual insight meets grounded wisdom, and where every message is crafted to awaken clarity within you. If these transmissions speak to your spirit, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support allows us to continue offering meaningful guidance and creating more content that nourishes the soul. Now, Virgo, listen closely. This next part matters. Because the shift approaching you is not gentle. It is not symbolic. It is not the soft whisper of an idea or a subtle emotional nudge. What's coming is decisive, unmistakable. A turning of the wheel that cannot be delayed or negotiated. This is the moment when destiny steps onto the stage and says, enough. It's my turn now. And when destiny moves, your life changes. Your relationships change. Your direction changes. Sometimes overnight. Sometimes in one conversation. Sometimes in a single realization that snaps you awake. And here's the part that most people never expect. Divine intervention rarely feels like a blessing at first. It often arrives disguised as disruption, surprise, or the collapse of something you thought was stable. But for Virgo, this collapse is correction. This redirection is rescue. This pressure point in December is the universe lifting you out of a timeline that could no longer hold your purpose. Stay with me. Because once you understand the scale of what is unfolding for you, you will look back on this moment, this exact moment, and realize that it was not just an introduction. It was the first knock of destiny on your door. When heaven interrupts, Virgo, and the first sign of awakening. There comes a moment in every seeker's life when the ground trembles, not from danger, but from destiny. And if you are Virgo, this trembling has not been subtle. It has shaken your routines, cracked your certainty, and unsettled the very places where you once felt safely anchored. What you've been experiencing is not a collapse in the human sense. It is what the mystics, prophets, and old tarot scholars would call the divine disruption, the first undeniable sign that heaven is intervening on your behalf. For many Virgos, especially those in their 40s, 50s, and beyond, this disruption has arrived in the form of unraveling. A plan you had counted on suddenly fell apart. A relationship you invested in shifted without warning. An emotional truth you carefully tucked away demanded to be felt, loudly and without compromise. At first glance, it looks like loss. But spiritually, it is preparation. When I speak to individuals who carry the Virgo soul, I often remind them of something Scripture whispers repeatedly. Before God plants, He digs. Before He restores, He clears. And before He blesses, He disrupts what is too small, too limiting, too fragile to hold the abundance He intends to deliver. In astrology, we call this a reset of the earth element, an inner earthquake that destabilizes the old so the new can actually survive. If you're honest, the past weeks or months have felt like watching a chapter close without your permission. You may have questioned whether you were being punished, forgotten, or pushed aside. But spiritually, the opposite is true. What you're feeling is the unmistakable initiation of a new cycle. Heaven is not taking from you. Heaven is making room. The disruption itself is layered. There is the outer layer, plans collapsing, connections shifting, routines dissolving. But the deeper layer is emotional. The confusion, the loneliness, the sense of being suspended between what was and what will be. And for someone with your temperament, practical, loyal, detail-oriented, this limbo can feel like a kind of spiritual exile. Yet I invite you to consider a different perspective. What if this moment is not exile at all, but exodus? What if the discomfort you're feeling is not abandonment, but deliverance? In tarot, this phase resembles the Tower card, but not the destructive version that most fear. Rather, it is the version seasoned readers recognize, the necessary dismantling that reveals what was hidden beneath the rubble, your resilience, your intuition, your unclaimed authority over your own life. I've observed a powerful pattern among Virgos in this season. When the disruption begins, they first focus on the loss. But soon after, quietly, subtly, something else awakens. A new instinct. A sharper intuition. A sense that even though nothing makes sense, something deeper feels right. This is the holy paradox of the divine disruption. The outer world breaks open just enough for the inner world to expand. If you have felt this mix of grief and clarity, chaos and calm, confusion and strange reassurance, then you are already in the activation stage. You are being reoriented, not ruined. You are being called forward, not discarded. And as someone who has walked alongside many Virgos through similar seasons, let me offer a personal commentary. Virgo never breaks without emerging wiser, steadier, and astonishingly renewed. Your spirit is built for resurrection. This is why the video frames the disruption not as disaster, but as divine reset. Because the moment you recognize it for what it is, the fear begins to lift. The heart begins to soften. And the mind begins to accept that you are transitioning into a chapter where alignment matters more than control. So here is your invitation, delivered gently but with spiritual authority. Acknowledge the shift. Say it out loud. Whisper it. Or simply type the words that signal spiritual consent. I'm ready. Not ready to suffer. Those days are done. Not ready to lose. What's leaving was never meant to stay. But ready to receive. Ready to rise. Ready to let heaven finish what it has started. Because the divine disruption is not the ending, it is the opening. And Virgo, your opening has already begun. When prosperity finds you, Virgo and the second sign of awakening. There is a moment, quiet, almost imperceptible, when the soul begins to shift from survival to creation. When the mind no longer loops around what was lost, but turns, almost instinctively, toward what might be possible. For Virgo, this moment marks the second unmistakable sign of spiritual activation, the awakening of money magnetism and abundance energy. This is the phase that arrives only after the old scaffolding has collapsed, after the divine disruption has stripped away what could no longer sustain you. And in the stillness that follows, something extraordinary happens. You begin to feel a hum beneath your life, soft, rhythmic, insistent. A sense that resources are gathering, opportunities are forming, and prosperity is shifting in your direction. For many Virgos, especially those in their 40s, 50s, and 70s, those who have lived through cycles of responsibility, sacrifice, and rebuilding, this sensation may feel foreign. You are accustomed to working for every inch you gain. You're used to being the reliable one, the one who plans, the one who holds life together through diligence and discipline. But in this new spiritual stage, prosperity doesn't come through strain. It comes through alignment. Astrologically, we call this the clearing of the earth field, when the emotional debris and spiritual clutter that once blocked financial flow have finally been dissolved. And once the field is clean, abundance doesn't trickle in. It moves, boldly, directly, unmistakably, toward you. You may already be sensing it, a business idea that suddenly feels viable. An investment opportunity that seems to appear from nowhere. A financial door opening in a place you were certain had long been sealed. Or even a quiet knowing, an intuition, that the next chapter of your life will not mirror the scarcity or instability of the past. When I counsel Virgo clients or interpret tarot spreads for those under this sign, I often see the same symbolic pattern emerge. The Ace of Pentacles paired with the Star or the Wheel of Fortune. These cards don't promise sudden riches. They signal divine timing. They confirm that your energy field has become magnetic again, not from desperation, but from readiness. This is an important distinction, and it's one I want to illuminate for you personally. Money does not chase people who cling to it. It moves toward people who have space for it, emotional space, spiritual space, energetic space. And Virgo, your space is finally clear. What's fascinating about this stage is how practical and mystical it feels at the same time. On the practical level, New ideas, clarity, and financial awareness sharpen. On the mystical level, you begin noticing signs, a conversation overheard at the right moment, a sudden financial blessing, a gut feeling that nudges you toward a path you never considered, a chance encounter that opens a door. These are not coincidences. They are confirmations. In Christian mysticism, we might call them provisions. In astrology, we call them alignments. In tarot, we call them synchronicities. But no matter the language, the message remains the same. Prosperity is no longer resisting you. It is gravitating toward you. This shift feels especially profound for Virgo because you have spent years, sometimes decades, feeling that abundance was something you had to earn through struggle. But spiritually, financial flow doesn't respond to struggle. It responds to resonance. And your resonance has risen. Your heart is steadier. Your confidence is returning. Your intuition is sharper than it has ever been. That combination creates a powerful magnetic field, one that draws opportunities into your orbit with almost uncanny precision. From a personal perspective, I believe this phase is one of the greatest gifts the universe gives to earth signs. Because unlike sudden luck, this new prosperity is sustainable. It is grounded. It is shaped by wisdom. You're not just attracting money, you are attracting the right money, through the right channels, for the right reasons. And so, as your guide in this storytelling journey, I will invite you into a ritual. Not superstition, not wishful thinking, but an act of acknowledgement. A way to signal to the universe that you are not merely observing the shift, you are welcoming it. If your spirit feels this truth, if something within you recognizes the new current forming around your life, let it be affirmed through a simple declaration. Comment, money is coming. Not to command the universe, but to agree with it. Not to force abundance, but to receive it. Not to chase prosperity, but to allow prosperity to find you. Because Virgo, the second sign is here. Your financial field is awakening. And abundance is already on its way. The awakening of inner sight, Virgo and the third sign of ascension. There is a sacred moment in every spiritual journey when the outer noise begins to fade, and the inner voice, once faint, once fragile, rises with a clarity that feels almost supernatural. For Virgo, this is the third sign of awakening, the intuitive upgrade. It is not subtle. It does not whisper. It announces itself through dreams so vivid they feel like memories from another timeline, through sudden knowing that has no logical source, through gentle nudges that pull you away from what harms you and toward what is divinely orchestrated for you. This stage marks the moment the universe begins training your spiritual senses, sharpening them for what lies ahead, particularly the energetic doorway of December 9th to 10th, where destiny and clarity begin to converge. If you've noticed your dreams becoming rich with symbolism, if you've found yourself predicting outcomes before they unfold, if you've felt a mysterious inner certainty guiding your decisions, then you are already inside this intuitive awakening. And for Virgo, one of the most analytical, grounded, and detail-focused signs, this heightened intuition often comes as both a surprise and a relief. After years of relying on logic, structure, and evidence, suddenly your instincts are speaking louder than your doubts. Your spirit is stepping into a leadership role that your mind is learning to follow. In Christian contemplative tradition, this phase is described as the opening of the inner eye, a moment when the soul becomes receptive to spiritual insight that has always been present but previously drowned out by worry, responsibility, or self-criticism. In tarot language, this is the high priestess stepping forward, lifting the veil, inviting you to see not only what is, but what will be. And in astrology, this aligns with a cleansing of Mercury's influence, allowing Virgo to perceive truth beyond rational limits. You may have also noticed the numbers 111, 222, 717, 1212. They show up on clocks, receipts, license plates, random pages of books. They appear at the exact moment your heart asks a question or your mind wrestles with uncertainty. These numbers are not coincidences, they are codes. Spiritual markers. Signals that your intuition is syncing with divine timing. When these sequences appear, it is the universe whispering, stay aware. You're being guided. But here is the deeper truth. Virgo's intuition doesn't just sharpen, it evolves. It becomes a tool for discernment. A filter. A compass. You begin sensing not only opportunities but also what to avoid, who to distance yourself from, where not to invest your emotional or financial energy. This upgraded intuition protects you just as much as it prepares you. In my experience working with Virgo clients, this stage often arrives when they least expect it, right after a difficult awakening or an emotional clearing. That timing is intentional. Once the old fears dissolve and the old narratives collapse, the spiritual senses finally have space to activate. You become more porous to divine instruction, more receptive to truth, more aligned with your own higher wisdom. What fascinates me about Virgo in this phase is how quickly clarity forms once the intuitive door opens. Decisions that once took weeks become evident in minutes. People you once doubted reveal their true intentions through subtle gestures. Situations that used to confuse you suddenly unravel with perfect precision. It's as if God himself has placed a lamp inside your chest, illuminating things you never had the capacity to understand before. This intuitive upgrade is not just a gift, it is preparation. You are being trained to notice the signs that will guide you into the next spiritual cycle. The doorway of December 9th to 10th is not merely a date, it is a frequency. A moment when your inner knowing must be trusted, not questioned. Your intuition becomes the language through which the universe speaks directly to you. And so, as I walk with you through this chapter, I invite you to honor what you feel. Trust the dreams that shake you awake. Trust the sudden clarity that seems unreasonable yet undeniably true. Trust the numbers. Trust the signs. They are your compass now, pointing you toward your next breakthrough. If you've been seeing these codes, 111, 222, 717, 1212, let it be affirmed. Let it be acknowledged. Let it be welcomed. Your intuition is not malfunctioning. It is maturing. And it is guiding you exactly where you are meant to go. The sacred unraveling, Virgo, and the purification of the soul. There comes a point in every spiritual awakening when the heart begins to speak in ways that the mind cannot yet understand. Tears rise without warning. Exhaustion clings to you like a second skin. Loneliness settles in the quiet corners of your day, even when you are not truly alone. And if you are Virgo, this moment marks the fourth sign of your ascension, emotional purge and soul detox. This stage is not gentle, but it is holy. It is not pleasant, but it is purifying. It does not mean you are falling apart, it means you are finally releasing what has been heavy for too long. In Christian spirituality, this phase is called the cleansing of the heart, the moment when God softens the hardened places within you so His grace can flow freely again. In astrology, it is the shedding of old emotional debris, the detox of energies you absorbed but never processed. In tarot, it resembles the death card, not a literal ending, but a sacred transformation that clears the path for renewal. Virgo, you may have noticed yourself crying without knowing why. You may feel waves of sadness come and go like tides that do not follow the clock. You may wake up tired, even after a full night's rest, as though your soul has been working through grief while your body lay still. This is not weakness. It is release. Your spirit is exhaling years of emotional weight, heartbreak you powered through, disappointments you buried, betrayals you minimized, responsibilities you carried long after your strength ran out. Virgo tends to endure quietly, silently, without complaint. But even the strongest earth must replenish. Even the steadiest foundation must be relieved of its strain. During this phase, you may find yourself distancing from certain people. Perhaps you cannot explain the shift, but something inside you knows, I can't carry their energy anymore. This is part of the detox. The soul knows when connections have run their course, when someone's presence drains more than it supports, when a relationship repeats old pain, when a pattern no longer belongs to your future. As your guide through this journey, let me reassure you, this emotional unraveling is not evidence that you are breaking down. It is evidence that you are breaking open to clarity, breaking open to truth, breaking open to a future that requires your heart to be lighter, freer, and more receptive. There is a rhythm to this process. The purge will come in waves, some small, some consuming, but with each release, something inside you becomes cleaner, softer, braver, more attuned to the blessings preparing to enter your life. Because make no mistake, Virgo, blessings cannot land on a crowded emotional landscape. Your soul must be cleared, not because you are unworthy, but because you are destined to receive more than what your old wounds could hold. This is where the symbolic beauty of your journey shines through. Every tear you shed is not a collapse, it is a cleansing. Every moment of fatigue is your spirit recalibrating. Every wave of loneliness is a signal that you are being energetically separated from the past so that the future can recognize you. In a strange, sacred way, You are being hollowed out so that you can be filled again. From my own perspective, having studied tarot, astrology, and contemplative theology for decades, I've seen this pattern repeat with remarkable precision. The emotional purge always precedes the breakthrough. It always comes before the blessing. And for Virgo, whose heart is so often disciplined, controlled, and guarded, this stage is especially profound. It is the moment your spirit finally whispers, "I am tired of holding what no longer belongs to me." So if you find yourself crying at unexpected times, allow it. If you feel your body begging for rest, honor it. If your heart is calling for solitude, respect it. You are not closing off, you are opening. You are not falling apart, you are falling into alignment. You are not losing control, you are being prepared. And as this detox continues, something beautiful is already forming around you. Space. Space for joy. Space for peace. Space for miracles. Space for the blessing to land. So let this stage unfold, Virgo. Your spirit is not malfunctioning, it is healing. And healing by nature always looks like unraveling before it looks like restoration. The fifth sign, when the past knocks for the last time. There comes a moment in every spiritual journey when the past refuses to stay buried. Not to punish, not to reopen the wound, but to finish what was left undone. And Virgo, the fifth sign of your awakening is exactly that moment. The quiet, deliberate return of someone or something you once thought had faded into the distance. When the past circles back, it rarely announces itself with drama. It arrives like a familiar shadow across the threshold of your memory, carrying not chaos but completion. And as someone who has spent decades studying both the ancient languages of the stars and the contemplative rhythms of Christian mysticism, I can tell you this. Nothing returns without purpose. Nothing revisits your life unless heaven allows the cycle to close. For Virgo, this return marks the final chapter of a 7-year karmic loop, a chapter you've lived through in different forms, with different faces, all leading up to this singular moment of truth. It may come as a person, a voice you have not heard in years, a message delivered at the exact hour your spirit is ready. Or it may come as a memory, resurfacing with uncanny clarity, inviting you to see your own story from a higher vantage point. And yet, the purpose remains the same. Karmic closure, not reconciliation, awakening, not attachment. Because the universe is not returning them to you. It is returning you to yourself. Many Virgos who walk this path feel a mix of dread and tenderness when the past reappears. It is natural, especially for those who spent their lives carrying responsibilities no one acknowledged, burdens no one thanked them for. But spiritual maturity teaches us that closure is not an apology. Closure is recognition. Recognition of how far your soul has traveled, how deeply you've grown, and how profoundly you have survived what once felt unbearable. And in the Christian contemplative tradition, this is what we call a mercy visitation. A moment when God allows old stories to return not to wound you but to free you. This sign arrives with subtlety but not confusion. You will know it by the timing, the tone, and the unmistakable stirring inside your chest. Maybe it's the message you thought would never come, or the conversation you rehearsed for years but never had the chance to speak aloud. Maybe someone reappears simply to say the words that were misplaced in time. I misunderstood you. I wasn't ready. I'm sorry. But even that is not the real point. Because as the deeper laws of astrology remind us, closure is never about the other person. It is about the shift that begins inside you the moment their presence awakens a truth you had forgotten. What truth? That you outgrew a version of yourself that once felt small, insecure, waiting for validation from people who did not know how to love you. That you have stepped into a spiritual identity built on resilience, discernment, and divine protection. That your heart, once fractured by the weight of others' choices, has become the strongest instrument of empathy you possess. And so the return of the past becomes symbolic, not intrusive. It is the final door you walk through before the new chapter begins. From a tarot perspective, this moment mirrors the energy of the judgment card, the resurrection of something buried, not so it may live again, but so it may rise and ascend. It is the sound of the inner trumpet that calls your soul into alignment, urging you to step out of old stories with grace. In astrology, it resembles the cleansing sweep of a karmic node shifting, pulling the last thread of an outdated timeline and allowing it to dissolve. And in the language of spiritual psychology, it is the breaking of the loop, the recognition that the lesson has been mastered. I believe deeply that the past returns only when the heart is strong enough not to repeat it. And Virgo, your heart is no longer fragile. It is seasoned, sharpened, spiritually tempered. The message that returns to you, whether whispered through memory or delivered by someone who once mattered, comes as confirmation, not confusion. It is the universe placing its hand gently over yours and saying, "You may release this now." Because what stands ahead of you requires no echoes from the old world. Only clarity. Only peace. Only the strength of a soul that has completed its cycle. So when this fifth sign arrives, do not fear it. Do not overthink it. Do not search for meaning in the person. Instead, look inward. Because the real miracle is not that they returned. The real miracle is what awakens in you when they do. The sixth sign, when the angels speak through numbers, and the gate of miracles finally opens. There are moments in life when heaven stops speaking in riddles and begins speaking in numbers. For Virgo, the sixth sign arrives not in the form of a person or a memory, but in the quiet repetition of sacred digits, 111, 222, 717, 1212, appearing on clocks, receipts, license plates, and even in the silent corners of your prayer life. And if you are a Virgo between the ages of 40 and 70, you know better than anyone that God and the universe often whisper in patterns long before they speak in outcomes. These repeating numbers are not coincidences. They are activation codes, signals that the spiritual architecture around your life is shifting. Each sequence is a countdown, guiding you toward the threshold of December 9th to 10th, the moment astrologers and spiritual scholars call the Miracle Gate, a narrow portal where destiny aligns with divine timing. When you saw 111, a doorway opened. When you saw 717, the energy of manifestation rearranged itself around you. And each time you saw 1212, the universe was gently preparing your heart to release the old chapter and step toward the new. These numbers are not signs of what is coming. They are signs that what you prayed for is already in motion. In my years studying both the mystic traditions of Christianity and the symbolic language of astrology, I have witnessed a powerful truth. Numbers appear when the soul is about to turn a corner. They come when something sacred is approaching, something too big to arrive without preparation. And for Virgo, the return of these angel numbers is heaven's way of saying, stay awake. Stay steady. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. Many Virgos feel a strange vibration during this time. An inner hum, a sense of being watched over, a pressure on the chest that is not anxiety but alignment. That sensation is your spirit stepping into formation, responding to the codes being delivered to you. It is the spiritual equivalent of the universe dialing your number repeatedly, reminding you that transformation has a schedule, and that schedule is arriving right on time. Then comes the climax, the moment when the miracle gate finally opens. And Virgo, this is where everything you have endured begins to make sense. Every heartbreak, every disappointment, every season of loss, every shedding of identity, none of it was wasted. It was preparation, a divine pruning, a shaping of your character so that when blessing arrives, you are strong enough to hold it. The opening of the miracle gate is not a symbolic shift, it is a spiritual event. It is the moment heaven breathes upon the seeds you planted years ago, commanding them to bloom. It is where timelines collapse, where delays dissolve, where long-awaited prayers gather their strength and land in your life with the force of divine accuracy. When the gate opens, Virgo steps into a new cycle marked by three pillars: prosperity, love, and purpose. Nobody earns these gifts, they arrive as grace. But your grace has been delayed, not denied. And now, after 7 years of karmic clearing, spiritual purging, emotional rebuilding, and quiet resilience, the universe is finally releasing what has always been yours. For some, it will appear as financial restoration, doors opening in places where you once only met walls. For others, it may be the rebirth of love, not necessarily with an old partner but with someone aligned with the healed version of who you have become. And for many Virgos, the miracle gate ushers in a renewed sense of mission, a clarity about why you survived what you survived, and what God expects you to do with the wisdom you earned. What I find remarkable, as both a student of the stars and a believer in divine orchestration, is that miracles rarely feel explosive when they first arrive. They often begin as a shift in the atmosphere, subtle yet unmistakable, gentle yet powerful, like the soft glow before daylight breaks. But once the miracle gate opens, the blessings accelerate. Synchronicities multiply. Opportunities unfold. The right people find you. And life begins to move with the rhythm of grace instead of struggle. Virgo, this is not a promise of someday. This is the announcement of now. Your miracle is not coming, it has crossed the threshold. It is already here, rising beneath your feet, preparing to manifest in ways you could not have imagined but have quietly hoped for your entire life. So as this energy settles into your spirit, anchor it with intention. Speak it into existence. Allow your voice to participate in the unfolding of your destiny. And if you feel called, declare it in the comments, I claim my miracle. Not as superstition, not as wishful thinking, but as a spiritual agreement, a way of placing your signature on the blessing heaven has already written in your name. Take a breath, Virgo. This is the moment the noise quiets, the storm settles, and you finally see what the chaos was preparing you for. Every disruption, every sleepless night, every goodbye that left you hollow, it wasn't punishment. It was purification. It was the universe clearing the space for your soul to rise into alignment. You suffered quietly. You healed quietly. You rebuilt quietly. And now, the universe is preparing to lift you loudly. Your debt has been paid. Your struggle is over. And your true life is beginning now. You are stepping out of survival and into creation. Out of waiting and into becoming. The version of you that once begged for signs no longer needs to chase them. Because now, you are the sign. You are the evidence that light wins, that patience pays, that faith transforms everything it touches. Pause here. Take a slow, full breath. Let it fill the empty spaces that once held fear. Feel how your shoulders drop, how your chest opens, how your heart steadies itself in truth. You are not behind, you are not forgotten, you are exactly where destiny needed you to be. Virgo, this is your release. The end of the cycle that once kept you small. You have learned the difference between waiting and trusting, between holding on and surrendering. The world around you may not see the transformation yet, but your spirit knows. It feels lighter, clearer, rooted in something unshakable. The universe is not testing you anymore. It's trusting you. Trusting you to carry the wisdom born from your pain, to walk through open doors without fear, and to bless the ground you stand on. You are not chasing blessings, they are finding you, drawn to your new vibration. So when this video ends, don't rush away. Sit in the silence for a moment. Feel the soft hum of your new beginning settling in your chest. Whisper to yourself, I am ready. I am aligned. I am free. If your heart resonates with this truth, claim it. Write it, say it, breathe it. I claim my miracle. Because, Virgo, this is not a promise waiting to happen. It's a reality already unfolding. Take one last breath and let this truth settle deep. You are worthy of more than you ever asked for.